say we know what's best in India.
Yeah.
So we have to work with our Indian coordinator to achieve that.
But they're sort of feeding the information back into you. So
Well, we're a completely open source campaign.
Yeah.
We always have been.
Yeah.
We're getting a little bit less now. We did have issues with, sort of too much of an open source branding being, used by H&M or whatever. I mean, we like it. We like the fact that everybody's using us. But so we're a little bit more constricted now.
Yeah.
But we were the first 100% open source.
Oh, okay.
Or one of the, but very early on.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, lovely.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. Right, so if you're happy to get going, so tell me about the current situation as regards sustainability in the industry as a whole.
Yeah, well, we're seeing a huge rise in public demand over not just better products, but better buying habits. And we're looking at a generation that is applying scrutiny, that is wanting to know that brands are accountable. And obviously transparency has been really on the rise ever since the Rana Plaza disaster. There is this understanding that in order to know where brands are producing, transparency obviously is the first step towards that knowledge. And important that brands become accountable over their practices. So this is very much on the increase. Real effective changes, I don't think we're seeing any particular impact, but when it comes to awareness, massive difference.
Do you think fast fashion is to blame for most of the problems?
No. Did I interrupt you? Sorry.
No, that's it.
Okay. We at Fashion Revolution don't actually make a distinction between fast fashion and the luxury sector. We believe that it is the entirety of the fashion industry that needs to be called into question. And in particular, any somehow giant of the industry, whether it's a giant of the luxury or a giant of the high street, any brand that has that kind of an impact, any corporation that has that kind of an impact, whether they're cheap or expensive, they need to be analysed and scrutinised. We see a very different trend when it comes to the high street and the fast luxury, in the sense that potentially the high street is more socially innovating on social level, while the luxury sector seems to be more interested on the environmental side. But to say that fast fashion is the sole culprit is actually misleading our audience, because they're different issues, but it is, as I said, the entirety of the industry that needs to be scrutinised.
But you think there is a willingness to change now, that people are addressing the issues?
Well, there seems to be a step towards willingness. There is also an enormous amount of confusion, so it's actually quite difficult to know what to do.
How do you think we can combat this culture of consumerism and, for example, the £5 dress that was so famously, from Boohoo that was everywhere recently? What can we do about that?
Well, I think really, first of all, is to understand that the onus is not on us. It's not on citizens. The onus is on brands, governments and corporations to make those changes. What we can do, though, is use our behaviour to usher in the kind of changes that we want to see happen. And, the great thing about fashion is that it's individual, and we all react differently. We all have different tastes to the clothes that we buy. So it will be different call to actions for different citizens. So some of us will be much more interested in clothing longevity, and therefore really looking at the stuff that we've already owned and ensure that it can last a long, long time. That sends a big, strong, loud message to brands, which is that we're looking for quality in the things that we own and in the lives of the people who make them. For others, activism will be potentially more electronical. It'll be writing a postcards to the brands. At Fashion Revolution, we have this brilliant thing that you can literally press send, and you've sent a postcards to your brands demanding to know who made their clothes, who makes our clothes. And so we can't really look at one overall thing that we can do. But if we all understand that our wardrobes are firmly in the fashion value chain, then we can all take different steps to ensure that we are being heard.
I'm thinking about those young women who just they want cheap clothes that they can photograph. They're on Instagram, and then those clothes get binned. They end up in landfill, or worse, incinerated.
Yeah.
How can you change those minds?
It's a cultural shift, for sure. And I think we are getting there. I mean, I've brought this example before, but it's the only one that I feel visualize it. If you were to see a YouTuber now with 150 different plastic straws saying, and I'm going to drink my Coke from the green one, and I'm going to drink my lemonade with the yellow one, people would vomit. It would look so irrelevant. Their audience would switch off. So we are beginning to understand, the recent furore over the £1 bikini from Misguided. People were posting cheap clothing saying, my God, who made this? And so we're beginning to see the kind of public outcry which eventually will make these kind of individuals and those needs obsolete. And also we've got to bless technology. I mean, I've just heard of a recent technological advancement whereby you don't order the clothes and the clothes get to your house and then you send them back. You just send them your face and they Photoshop it and send you the Instagram post. So no clothes have been exchanged. So I think we have to look at irreverent ways of defying this madness, because really wanting to wear a piece of clothing just once is madness.
Do you have any examples of good practice or good policy from particular designers? Is there anyone leading the way?
I would suggest that citizens and this audience make up their own mind. I think this is the most important thing right now, is not to take other people's opinion as, all right, and that's what I'm going to do now. So my advice, which is also Fashion Revolution's mantra, is be curious, find out, do something. If you're curious, first of all, find out what you're curious about, and then go on a journey to find that information. On Fashion Revolution website, there will be so many tools to get that information, from our Fashion Transparency Index to our manifesto to our alternative and all of our resources. Personally, I champion diversity within the fashion industry. I want to see small, creative and artisanal brands leading the way and having equal billing to the H&Ms and the Guccis on our high street. So those are the practices that I'm interested in somehow promoting and talking about. So yes, small artisanal brands that are committed to their, mini supply chain, to the end of life of their clothing. That's what interests me. But there are many, many others doing amazing things.
Certainly Stella McCartney has sort of led the way from the beginning in terms of, whether it's using no fur or, leather, all of those kind of issues. She's really pushed other designers, slightly shamed them into changing their behaviour, hasn't she?
I think so. I think she's definitely a pioneer, and I think that they have the honesty to admit that they're nowhere near anywhere in a sense, which I find very, very refreshing. But as I said, Stella McCartney is, a large brand that operates somewhat traditionally. There is a multitude of smaller brands that are operating very untraditionally and who have embedded sustainable design thinking from the very start. And I feel that we should be celebrating them. I guess really a good place to start looking for them, weirdly enough, is also at London Fashion Week. In the menswear, we're seeing, a real surge of creative thinking, not just for the collections, but for the systems to bring those collections to market. So again, without wanting to pinpoint a single brand, I think that we are beginning to see innovation and best practice on a very wide scale at the moment.
Now, the government rejected a whole series of proposals, didn't they, to curb the worst of the fashion industry's excesses. That was disappointing, to say the least, wasn't it?
To say the least. That set us back 20 years at the very, very least. It is inexcusable and frankly unforgivable. Some of those recommendations, you'd think, why would you not take that into consideration? Why would you not consider reintroducing making as a curriculum? When we know that we're struggling to find surgeons because our children aren't learning how to use their hands. We're growing a generation that is capable of scrolling, and that's it. Down, right, left, swiping. I don't understand. The reality is that the UK government in this occasion has also looked very out of touch, because we are seeing quite a lot of policy change happening, for instance, in France. And it seems that, them not getting up to speed on this is a terrible thing.
Do you think self-regulation is going to work then?
Absolutely not. The first quote that came out from the EAC, the Environmental Audit Committee, which we collaborated with, we work a lot with Mary Cray, we're in conversation, was the fashion industry has been marking its own homework for too long. That says it all.
And what about progress in the rest of the world? You mentioned France, but where else? I mean, there are many, many countries in which that people are on incredibly low wages and
yes.
awful conditions. How is that progressing?
Well, I mean, it is not my personal sphere of competence. Our policy director would be the better person to discuss this at length. It is difficult. The issue of wages is very, very difficult, because obviously brands operate all from one factory, or many from one factory, or a factory cluster. So it seems complicated if H&M is committed to a living wage, but another brand from that same cluster isn't. There are all sorts of practical complications. The reality is that we're seeing pockets of change in terms of legislation, and we're certainly seeing a big demand for policy change in terms of legislation. So, but as you say, it is different, from the produce, even within those producing countries.
And so how do you see the future then? An ideal future? What would Fashion Revolution want to see?
Well, an ideal future, Fashion Revolution would like to see a future without Fashion Revolution, which in itself, we're digging ourselves out of our own jobs. But, for me, there are key areas, and obviously we're looking at these policy changes. We need, those life-changing pieces of work that need to be done in terms of legislation and practices that need to happen from governments and brands. And obviously we need to move towards a culture that doesn't exploit neither people nor planet. For me, the future takes into consideration both the social and the environmental. But I think the bigger changes will be physical, will be somehow to our high streets. I think we will see things like mending stores in every corner, because we will have understood the value of the clothes that we already own. I think that we will see very different ways of selling clothes, from, as I mentioned, the more artisanal to a return to the bespoke. We know that the secondary market is absolutely booming. It's expected to grow. It is growing, I think, 10 times faster than any other business. It's expected to be bigger than fast fashion over the next 10 years. So obviously there will be an awful lot of changes around that. Vintage and secondhand really will be a much bigger proposition, both within brands and without. So, and I also believe that we will be more interested in things that are local. And this will mean that somehow we will follow the culture around food. And this will be that we will be supporting younger designers that are more local to us, local production, so on and so forth.
Lovely, thank you. Could you just tell me your name and your job title, just for the purposes of the tape?
Yes.
In case anything happens.
My name is Orsola de Castro, and I am the creative director and co-founder at Fashion Revolution.
So that's how we should refer to you in the piece?
Yes, please.
Lovely. Thank you.
I think I fluffed a little bit the one about policy.
That's fine.
Was it okay?
Yeah.
You're the best to know. Okay.
No, that's absolutely fine. What we do need, though, is a setup shot of
Right.
some description.
You just...
I'm also trying.
Oh, don't worry about that. Don't read it in a false way, because I will get a shot of the cover
Okay.
in there. Right, okay, start flicking through the book, please.
My nails are filthy, so I'm gonna have to try and hide them. Fuck. Yeah, no, I don't think I'm happy to do